On February 21st, 1965, Malcolm X, leader of Muslim Mosque Inc. and the Organization of Afro-American Unity, was assassinated during an Organization of Afro-American Unity meeting at the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan, more well known as the leader of the Nation of Islam. He was shot at least 21 times with a mix of 12-gauge 9x19 Luger and 45 ACP. There is still some controversy surrounding who exactly shot him, and the actual murder weapons have never been revealed. Supposedly, a 12-gauge sawn-off was found nearby discarded in a jacket. The exact brand was never revealed. Talmadge Hayer was identified as the shooter with the shotgun and beaten severely by the crowd before police arrived. He suffered several broken ribs and a broken leg. Several witnesses were also hit with gunfire. The assassination began with a man in the crowd shouting, "Hey, get your hand out of my pocket." Malcolm X, standing at the podium, then reportedly said, "Hey, cool it." And as the crowd whirled around in confusion, a man stepped towards the stage and fired a single blast from a concealed sawn-off shotgun. While he was then beaten and pulled down by the crowd, Malcolm X's bodyguards stepped towards the first assassin, leaving a bleeding and wounded Malcolm temporarily alone at the podium. Then two more gunmen from the crowd stepped forward and fired a mix of 45 ACP and 9x19 Luger rounds into his body. The cause of death was listed as several rounds to the heart. On August 25, 1967, in Arlington, Virginia, the leader of the American Nazi Party was gunned down at the Dominion Hall shopping center while trying to do his laundry. George Lincoln Rockwell was shot by former National Socialist John Padler from the rooftop of the shopping center when he went out to his car to go and get bleach to clean his clothes at the laundromat. Padler was arrested half an hour later after throwing his gun into 4 Mile Run nearby, when he was spotted with wet trousers waiting for a bus by a police officer. Police say 2 shots were fired from a rooftop of a beauty salon across the street from the Dominion Hills shopping center. 2 bullets went through the windscreen of the 49-year-old's blue and white Chevrolet and hit him in the head and the chest. He died instantly. Eyewitnesses said the Nazi leader was reversing his car out of the parking space in the shopping center when the incident happened. As the shots hit his car, he dived onto the passenger seat in an attempt to escape. His car apparently crashed into another vehicle. A coroner pronounced him dead at the scene. George Lincoln Rockwell, who lived just yards from the scene of his death, founded the American Nazi Party, originally known as the World Union of Free Enterprise and National Socialists, in 1959. John Padler was expelled from the party that previous April for Bolshevik leanings. The weapon used was reportedly a C-96 broom-handle Mauser firing the 7.63 by 25mm Mauser round. John was accused of having stolen this exact weapon from the American Nazi Party headquarters. Spent shells of the same type were found on his local farm. I have 2 here. First is the .442 Webley British Bulldog used by one Charles Guiteau to assassinate President Andrew Garfield. Mr. Guiteau was a Republican Party member who had canvassed support for Garfield during the 1880 election, and expected to be rewarded with a government position, as was the fashion in politics at the time. Guiteau wanted to be named ambassador to the Qing court in China, despite not actually speaking Chinese and knowing next to nothing about China. Garfield, who had no idea who Guiteau even was, rejected his demand for a job. So after purchasing the aforementioned Webley with ivory grips, as it would look more striking in a museum. So after following Garfield's schedule for days, and neglecting to kill him at one point because Garfield had his wife with him, and Guiteau did not want to upset the poor woman, he eventually struck on July 2nd, 1881. Firing 2 shots that hit Garfield in the back, one shattering a vertebrae but not actually hitting the spine. Garfield lingered for months before finally succumbing to infection, because his retired doctors kept poking his wound with their bare fingers, dying on September 19th of that same year. Guiteau was found guilty and sentenced to hang on June 30th, 1882. His last words was him reciting a poem he had written called, "I am going to the Lordy." Though famously, he was overpowered by the jeers from the crowd, to the point he stopped and shouted at them, "You are all low, consummate jackasses!" And that was the execution of the 20th President of the United States. A classic, the Nagant revolver was used to kill Sergei Kirov, a close friend of Stalin, which jump-started the Great Purges in the Soviet Union. This was one of the biggest pistols of Asian crime. People nicknamed it the Black Star, and it had a reputation for power among the underworld.
Find that one in Pack up your trunk today.